in her speech, Otherworldly Communications.
Thank you, Vanessa. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and most welcome guests, and especially our new Toastmaster, Stan Koss. I, how many of you believe in ghosts? Raise your hand. I see a few hands up. Well, for those who don't believe in ghosts, kind of put your reality hat on the rack and listen to what I have to say, because I'm hoping that what I share with you tonight will help you remember the four different types of leadership styles. I want to tell you a little story. Growing up, I lived on a house on a hill in the woods. There was lots of wildlife out there. My family was the first ones to live in this house. The guy that built it died when he was struck by lightning while building the house. Then it was unbuilt for several months, and then someone took it up the banner and finished it and sold it to my father. Well, I remember when I was about 5 or 6, and it may have been happening before then, but that's when I first remembered that we were sitting in the living room talking to mom. Dad was at the store working, and we were kind of quiet. It was my sister. She was 5, I was 6. And we heard this noise, this crunch, crunch, crunch. And mom looked out the window because that meant somebody was on our gravel driveway. And she looked out and she didn't see anybody. And then we heard somebody's going up the steps. But then there was no one knocking on the door. So me and my sister cowered down beside our mother, behind her, as she peeked out the curtains of the door and got even closer to her when she started to open the door. And she peeked out and she saw nothing, nothing. So she closed the door, and my mother quickly said, "Oh, it's time for y'all to go to bed. Let's all get in my bed." So I think it was just as much for her comfort as it was for ours that we crawled in bed with mom. So this noise, this crunch, 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 and this knock, knock, knock was heard frequently. And then it started adding another sound: creak, 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 as this sound started walking across the floor, usually after we were in bed. And we usually heard this ghost when we had overnight visitors, which wasn't often because people did not like to spend the night at our house, and and didn't just rarely spend the night. So that ghost kind of has a direct communication style because it was real obvious that he was not liking our company. So we didn't have much. It was very rare. So let me move on. We called him Mr. Crunch Crunch. So now we'll move on to ghost number 2. My dad had died about 3 or 4 months before this event happened, and I was in bed asleep, and something woke me up. And then I realized it was creak, creak, creak. Somebody was walking down the hallway on our wood floor, and they were headed to my door. So I backed up against the wall as far back as I could from the front door and held my hands up. And then this specter comes into the room, and there's a light kind of dimming and getting brighter and dimming and getting brighter, and it keeps creaking and it keeps getting closer. I'm as far back to the wall as you could get. I was so scared I couldn't scream for my mother, and she probably wouldn't have heard me anyway because her bed was on the other side of the house. And I just watched this specter kind of move into the room and move into my bed, not on my bed, but into it. And there was no movement of the bed, like something was sitting on it or standing on it. And it just kind of stood there. And I noticed, I tried to see if it had a face, but there was no face. It was all black. It was dark. It was inside this cape that this thing wore. And he just moved back and forth. And then he turned around and left. And I thought, well, this kind of makes me feel like maybe it's my father telling me that everything's going to be okay. So the next morning, somehow I'd gotten to sleep and then woke up again, hint, hint, and told mom about it. And she says, "Oh, that's just a nightmare. Don't be bothered by that." So that was number two, and that was ghosts that I call Dad's ghost. And he had kind of an initiating type of communication style. So now we'll move on to number three. Number three, as far as I can tell, started in when I was about 16. And the first time I remember it was that I had been in a car accident with a girlfriend and she was driving. It wasn't a really big deal, but the car needed to be towed to a shop. And I had put my prescription glasses in the glove compartment because the nose piece had broken off. When all the excitement of getting out of the car and calling her mom and picking us up, I forgot about my glasses. So that night, I told mom that what had happened, that I needed my glasses. She says, "Well, we'll go in the morning and we'll get your glasses out of the car. We just need to find out where it is." So I said, "Oh, okay." So the next morning I get up and on top of the dresser are my glasses. And I know I did not put them there because I would have worn them that night. But mom was convinced that I had forgotten and brought them home and put them on the dresser. So this ghost continues to pop up in my life, I think. And only a few weeks ago, I was going to the car and I had keys in one hand and some papers in the other. I went out there, to drop the papers in the car, realized something needed to go in the house. I take it in the house and no keys. So then I go back to the car. I can't find the keys and I give up. Well, the next morning I get up, go back to the car, look again in the same places. There's my keys. So I think the ghost has helped me again. So that leadership style is a supportive one because he's supporting me. Now, there's a fourth leadership style, and that's analytical. And I am not going there with ghost. You just don't analyze ghost. So those are the four leadership styles in relation to ghost. It has been an adventure. It probably has been a young lady's active imagination and an old lady's forgetfulness, but we did it. And I hope this hasn't been gobbledygook to anybody. Back to you, Vanessa.
Wow, thank you, Charlotte. I didn't put up my hand at the beginning when you asked if anybody believed in ghosts, but I do now. I think you've convinced me.
Good, good,
Thank you
good.
very much. So now we'll have a facilitated round for 30-second evaluations. Please welcome Paula to do that.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will start with 3 round robin evaluators, and let's go with May Tran first. And right after May, we'll do Stan. And Emily, will you like to be part of this round robin evaluation as well?
Sure, why not?
Okay. All right. Well, I'll call on you as right after Stan. So let's start with May.
Hello. Yeah, thank you. I don't think you had goggly cook. I don't know what to say. You did it great. Your the organization of the speech is very good, and then you talk about your mom and all that. So good story. Thank you.
Thank you, May. Stan.
Yes, Charlotte, I very much enjoyed the sound effects. That was one thing that really stood out to me. And I like the fact that you were pacing away from the camera to show stepping back away from the ghost. If I could give just one grow, it would be to change the golden gate behind you so that visually we're seeing something that's supporting what you're talking about, or at least a blank slate. But I really enjoyed your speech.
Thank you, Stan. Emily, give us about 30 seconds of a short, quick evaluation.
Thank you, Charlotte. I really love that you talk about ghosts because I believe in ghosts. I believe in ghosts because my mom saw a ghost and she told me about it. I like that you organize it and use that in your visionary leadership. I really like you have 4 different ghosts. So that's really nice the way you presented it. I wish you could dig deeper with the analysis of the ghost. There must be somewhere something that can be done there. I could not think of an example. It behooves me to give you some kind of room for improvement without a specific suggestion, but that would be where I would go. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily. All right, next let's do Melanie and then William. Oh, we have the red. We're done. Oh, okay. We can get 3 more. Yes. All right. Thank you. So let's do Melanie and William, and then we'll do Koki.
Thanks, Paula and Charlotte. I really loved your language and the way you engaged us by asking us questions and incorporating those sounds. I enjoyed the characters and the storytelling. I did think that you were going for dark humor, which is not my forte, so I probably can't help you improve on that. But I did think if you wanted to incorporate more humor, maybe little voices, the 5 to 6 year old Charlotte, you could have done her voice, and maybe some other voices for your mom and that kind of thing. But thank you. I'm really happy to have heard your first speech.
Thank you. William, you're up.
Yes, I quite enjoyed the speech too. I like the idea that it's like applying a Toastmasters project to a ghost story where, Toastmasters, they talk about all these types of different leaderships and you have the project on it. And I thought that that's actually a good method of using humor. And one of the methods of humor is saying that if something is true, then this also must be true. And I think that applied that pretty well.
Thank you, William. Koki, you're next. No gobbledygook, please.
Yes, I learned that the Charlotte is such a great storyteller. I have a habit to listen scary story before I go to bed or while I'm sleeping, and it's almost reminding me like those stories that I've been listening. And she tells very nice, steady, pace that then I can even fall asleep while I'm listening to ghost story. But the best of which is that she combined that ghost story into the Toastmaster for communication style. That was a clever way to approach, and that was very impressive, and I enjoyed your approach. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, back to you, Vanessa.
Thank you, Paula. Our next speech is from Linda Ramrath, and it is from Presentation Mastery Level 3.